Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Aspie Diaries. My name is Brad and I'm sitting along here with my wife Karen.
Hello.
What we're doing today is we're starting a podcast for the people who have Asperger's and who's married. And I just found out that I had this a few months ago and I really haven't found a lot of help with it. I've been to a couple doctors and they just say go to groups, so I decided to do something else. I decided to do a podcast with my wife to see if we could share our experience with you guys and, just start building a community for this syndrome. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to have Karen describe what is Asperger's.
First, I want to start off with the technical definition. Asperger's is a high-functioning form of autism. It can lead to difficulty interacting socially with repeat behaviors and clumsiness. For me, Asperger's is when the person has a really hard time connecting and understanding your emotions and how you feel about things. Kind of like things that would be more obvious to a person isn't as easy with a person with Asperger's. They can't necessarily read signals of a frowning face or a tone in your voice or a gesture with your body or even body language of like your arms being crossed or how a person without Asperger's, and I've read the term a neurotypical person is able to easily read those cues, and a person with Asperger's is not able to do that. So that's kind of my experience with Asperger's.
Yeah, and I don't know why they throw that clumsiness in there, because I've always been clumsy, but I don't think it's because of the Asperger's. Do you think it's because of the Asperger's?
I do.
Oh.
I have found that from my experience of research that it's often a common trait in a person with Asperger's.
Well, that makes sense then. That's why I'm so clumsy. So I've basically had this my whole life, and like I said, I've only just found out that I had this a few months ago, and I'm 32 years old and been married for 14 going on 15 years. And it's amazing how one could be married that long. You must have to have a dedicated wife or something, because it's been pretty tough. We've had some rough patches and things. Next, what we're going to talk about is how we discovered this and how I officially got diagnosed. So I'm going to ask again to my wife, how'd you first find out about this and why'd you think I could have had this?
Well, it was first brought to my attention by my twin sister. I'd like to backtrack a little just to tell a little of our history, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So I am a twin and Brad is also a twin. We met in high school and we were each other's first love and only love. We had our first child at 17, and like Brad said, we've been married for 14 years. So with just those hurdles alone, those are enough challenges in life. But things have come up in our marriage where it's been kind of obvious to me, like it's just not right. And I hate to use the word normal, but it's not typical of how Brad responds to a lot of things. And for many years, I thought it was, oh, we're just young. He's just young. He hasn't matured yet. But of course, as the years have gone on, I started to realize that it's not just age, that something just wasn't typical in his way of thinking. So my twin sister, as I brought up, she is a teacher. So she's had a lot of experience around kids. And she had mentioned to me if I had ever considered that Brad might have Asperger's. I had never heard of Asperger's before, but she kind of talked about a couple of the symptoms, kind of telling me the definition, as I told you guys in the beginning. And it made me really think. So I started doing some research about it, and it really started connecting the dots for me. It started showing me why he can't understand the way I'm feeling, or, why it's so difficult. And it did help to start to explore this, because it made some of the things not hurt as much. Because when you start to understand it's not an intentional way of thinking, it doesn't feel like the person is trying to be mean to you. I kind of mentioned it to Brad, and he did.
Did you have any examples that you wanted to share? Could you think of any?
I actually did just think of something. My mom passed away about 10 years ago. And she was 50 years old. It was very unexpected and very tragic for me. And I grieved heavily. Brad did his best to be supportive, but I could just feel that he could not connect with my emotion. And for a little bit, I tried to tell myself, well, he just doesn't understand because he hasn't experienced it. But then as time went on, I could feel that he couldn't understand why I hadn't healed, why it was so hard for me emotionally. And it made me realize that his way of thinking is just so literal. It's so, she's gone, there's nothing you can do, kind of time to move on. And I don't mean to say that as Brad didn't care. He just couldn't connect with the grief that I was having that other people were able to connect. So I would say that was my biggest eye-opener, was that situation, because I just really recognized that he cared about me and he was concerned, and it hurt him to see me hurting, but he really couldn't connect with my grief. So I would say, what do you think, Brad? I think that was probably my very first, wow, something is just not typical in his way of thinking.
Yeah. I could think of another thing. It happened pretty recently with your cousin, who, I don't know what happened. I think she lost a baby or something. And I was just sitting there like thinking, why are you sad about this or something?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, that has come up a lot when I have emotion for other people's hurts or trials or difficulties. Your reaction is usually like, oh, that's sad, that sucks, but you don't emotionally connect with it. You don't feel sad. You don't feel their pain.
Yeah.
And I think that you and I differ in that way, because probably with almost everybody in my life, I connect with them emotionally. I am a very emotional person. I care really deeply, and I hate to see people hurting. Not to say that you enjoy to see people hurting. I just feel you don't
Sometimes
understand.
I do.
Yeah, that's true. But you don't like to see people grieving and that kind of way.
Yeah, unless I don't like the person. And then so Amy told you about it, then you brought it up to me. And I think we had fought that day, and you ended up going somewhere and leaving. And I decided I'd take the test. I took 2 tests. The first test I took, they said a normal person's brain, it scored like a 20, and I scored a 36, which is in the Asperger's range. And then I took a more lengthy test because I didn't think it was right. It was like 200 questions, and I scored really high on that one too. So that's where I thought I must have had it. And then recently I went to a psychologist. He's the head of children autism in the Mercy Clinic. And he officially diagnosed it for me as well. So that's where I was diagnosed with it just recently. Looking back at it now, as a child, after doing all this research, and we are in no way, doctors or anything like that. We just looked up on the internet and saw the symptoms. And I could look back now and see signs of it as a child. Very limited eye contact with people. In school, whenever I'd walk down the halls, I'd always look away from people or look down. I never looked at them in the face. And I was highly obsessive over video games. Me and my brother could sit down and play for 8 hours if we could. And I still can do that. Also, the way that I sort things with the things that I like I like collecting Dragon Ball cards, and you always want to get that rare card or the foil card, and me and Brandon could sit there for hours and sort through all the cards, put them in order, take them out of an old binder and put them in a new binder so they look new, and things like that. So those are some big signs I saw in hindsight. I did list a few hurdles, and feel free to jump in whenever you want. In no particular order, except the first one is probably the biggest one. Crowded parties with people I'm not comfortable with. I say that I'm not comfortable with for a reason. Not just people I don't know, but people who's not in my close circle of friends or family. There's only a handful of people that I'm comfortable with. Karen, my wife, Brandon, my twin brother and his family, Matthew, my other brother, my younger brother and his family, Nick, my best friend besides Brandon, he's like a brother to me, and Melissa, his wife, and Rosa, their daughter. I always get along with kids very easily. That's another sign as well. Like I could go play with kids all day long at a party. The Gerwer brothers, Tim, his wife Holly, my uncle Ron, and my friend Patrick. With Patrick, we both love horror movies. And I'm very standoffish with new people. But I find if we have a common interest, it helps me bridge that gap. Another hurdle I have is my oldest son, Jordan, breaking the rules and not cleaning like he's supposed to. He has a whole list that he's supposed to check and double check. And then his chores complete, he has to clean the kitchen. And I think there's about 15 tasks on there. And if there's not one done, it could get me upset very easily. The other two kids, it takes a lot for me to get frustrated. We have two other kids, Logan and Sam. I could play video games, like I said, for hours, especially if there's some kind of collecting involved. If I have to end the game sooner than expected, I get a little irritated. Doing something new for the first time is frightening. Like the first time I had to do jury duty.
Pretty much anytime your routine has to be broken, it's really hard for you.
Yeah, and that's what it is I'm used to going to work, and I have to go do something else, and it sucks. That's why when I have a doctor's appointment usually, and it's like an hour-long doctor's appointment, I'll just take the whole day off because it throws my whole day out of whack, and it's hard to get back to that comfort zone.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that's a hurdle we can work on together. And
yeah. Oh man, speaking to someone on the phone that's not in my close circle of friends, anyone, even like the pizza guy, ordering takeout, the Comcast guy, I don't even want to have to think about having to dispute a bill with someone from that company. That'd be rough. That's why I have my wife do it. She's good at that. Keeping eye contacts with new people. Impulses. I'm very bad with my impulses. If I get something in my head, like if I see a new game come out that I really want, I'll stop at nothing to get it. Impulses are a big thing. I decided that I was going to start this podcast last night. Today's Monday, December 8th, so Sunday night, I decided I'd start this podcast to try to help people and relate to people who might have Asperger's. And I stayed up probably for 2 hours creating an outline and creating new Facebook accounts and Facebook pages. And then I couldn't go to sleep, so I had to turn on my video game until I got tired. So there's still some of the impulse things there, but when it comes to money, I'm trying to be more frugal about that. Getting over grudges is tough. I'm not sure if that's an Asperger thing or a Brad thing, but if I don't like someone and I hold a grudge against them, it's there for a long time. So those are a few of my hurdles. If I think of any more, I'll share them with you guys.
I wanted to just throw in that with my experience with Asperger's, these are hurdles. They are not permanent. What's the word I'm looking for?
Disabilities?
Yeah. Will always be difficult for Brad, but with practice and hopefully with my help, these are things he'll learn to be able to tolerate and handle. And that's why Asperger's has been so unrecognized for a long time on the autism spectrum, because it's not you have this and you are this way. Therapy and training and working on these things that are difficult, such as looking someone in the eyes, those kind of things, can be improved. You just have to work on it and practice it, and it becomes easier for them because it becomes more natural. So I think the important thing is a person with Asperger's has to go into it with the mindset that these are just hurdles. And I think that Brad has recently come to that place in his life where the anxiety of it is difficult and it's hard, But when I really sit down and tell him we need to work on this, he might feel great anxiety and get highly agitated. But he understands that with my help, he can work on these things. And just a small example, when Brad and I first met, one of the very first things I remember telling him was, or asking him was, why do you look down all the time? You look up, be proud of who you are. Because he always looked down at his feet, and I felt like he just had such a difficult time being present in any situation. And he is and was such a sweet man, and I just really encouraged him to be proud of it. And it was really amazing with my love and encouragement through the years to kind of see him blossom and not look down at his feet anymore and not be as afraid to be present.
So this is basically like an introductory episode. We'll have a set format, and we'll talk about that next episode on episode 2.
I want to end it with what we are hoping to achieve with the podcast.
That's a good idea.
I think we both have maybe similar but some different goals with it. So do you want to start, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll start. Basically, what I want to do is use this as a tool for when I get frustrated or upset. I could write down why I'm feeling frustrated or what set me off, and I'll be able to express it on the podcast. Some people write a journal. I tried that, not really into that. I do have another podcast that I do with Brandon and Nick, so I decided to do this for an outlet, and also to connect with other people who have Asperger's and see if we could trade tips and things like that. I also hope to get tips from them and share them with you guys. So it'll be like our own little Asperger podcast community. Basically also to just come out of the Asperger's closet, I guess. I'm going to post this on Facebook, and after I want to talk to Nick about it first, because I feel like I don't want him to find out through Facebook, so that's another reason.
For me, I'm hoping to, for Brad and I to be able to connect, first off, with this and support him. I'm hoping we can use this as a tool, like he said, when he's having trouble with something, he can write it down and we can have the opportunity to address it when we both are not frustrated and in a agitated place. And also, I'm hoping to be able to reach out to the partners or the other half, or even the caregivers, the moms, the brothers, the sisters, just for lack of a better term, the neurotypical person. It's really isolating and difficult to have a partner with Asperger's. When they're not able to always connect with you emotionally or understand why you're feeling what you are, it can feel very isolating. And I'm hoping to give encouragement to those out there to let them know, Brad and I have been doing this for 14 years. It hasn't always been easy, and there's been many difficult times. But it's worth the battle. So I'm hoping for me, I will get connection also, and that I'll find some people that understand. It's really difficult for my peers in my life to understand what I go through and why and how, just because people don't understand about Asperger's. So, also for people that are naive about the situation or don't understand, to give them an insight of what it's like and how difficult it can be and how rewarding it can be. It's not all negative. There's a lot of wonderful traits about Brad that he would not have if it weren't for him having Asperger's. And, I'm just really hoping that we can reach out to some people, like Brad said, and connect and build a community. And hopefully we can learn from all of you as well.
That's a good idea. At this time, I want to go ahead and give our email address. By the time you guys see this, we'll have our Facebook page launched, the Aspie Diaries. Our email address is theaspiediaries@yahoo.com. And go ahead and give us a like on Facebook. Share us with someone who you think might have Asperger's. And go ahead and write us any questions you may have. We'll try to answer them as best as possible. Again, we're not trained professionals in this, but we have had this condition for quite some time.
Maybe you could do the spelling of it, just in case.
It's the Yahoo address, I believe, is just Aspie Diaries, ASPIE diaries@yahoo.com. And we'll also be posting this on different forums. Maybe there's a Facebook forum about this, a Facebook page. I think we're going to do this weekly, so next week we'll have a format that we'll introduce to you guys. We hope to hear from you soon, and until next time, this is Brad saying goodbye.
And this is Karen. We'll see you in the next entry.